Ambassador Vexstar stood before the great communication array on his homeworld of Keltos Prime. His blue-scaled hands shook as he prepared to send what might be his people's final message to the galaxy. Behind him, the capital city burned under orbital bombardment from the Ravok Empire's war fleet. The Kelani had always been a peaceful people. For 3,000 years they had built trade routes between distant worlds and shared knowledge freely with any species they met, their greatest weapons were words, and their strongest shields were treaties. Now those treaties lay broken, and their words had fallen on deaf ears. Vexstar activated the deep space transmitter and began his desperate plea. His voice carried across the void to every known civilization in their sector of the galaxy. This is Ambassador Vexstar of the Kelani Federation sending an emergency distress call to all civilized species. Our confederation of 12 worlds faces complete destruction at the hands of the Ravok Empire. We are a peaceful trading people with no military force capable of defending against their war machine. The ambassador paused as another explosion shook the building. Through the massive windows he could see Ravok drop ships landing in the plaza below. Their soldiers poured out like black metal insects ready to consume everything in their path. The Ravok have already destroyed our defensive fleet and taken 4 of our outer worlds. Their military doctrine appears to be total annihilation of all life on planets they cannot use for resources. We estimate 2 billion Kelani civilians have already been killed. Vexstar's voice cracked with emotion, but he continued his broadcast. He had to make someone listen. Someone had to care enough to help them. We offer our complete technological database to any species willing to provide military assistance. This includes our faster-than-light communication systems, our medical knowledge, and our detailed star charts of this entire galactic arm. We also offer permanent trade agreements and access to our established shipping routes. The building shook again, and Vexstar could hear weapons fire getting closer. His security team had already fallen back to the inner chambers. He probably had minutes before Ravok soldiers reached the communication center. Please understand that we are not asking for conquest or expansion of your territory. We simply want to survive as a people. The Ravok Empire has made it clear they intend to use our worlds as mining operations after eliminating all existing life. This is not a territorial dispute but an extinction event. Several responses had already come back over the communication array, but none offered real hope. The Zephyrian Republic said they were too far away to provide timely assistance. The Alterian Union demanded exclusive rights to 3 Kelani star systems in exchange for limited defensive support. The merchant guilds offered to evacuate some civilians for an enormous fee but would not engage Ravok forces directly. Every response was the same pattern. Either the distance was too great, or the price was too high, or the military commitment was too small to matter. The galaxy watched their destruction like it was entertainment rather than genocide. Vexstar adjusted the transmitter to boost signal strength and sent his message again on all frequencies. Maybe someone out there would have both the power and the will to help them. Maybe someone still believed that innocent people deserved protection. The Ravok war doctrine relies on overwhelming force applied swiftly across multiple worlds. They use mobile fortress ships that can crack planetary defenses and establish orbital supremacy within hours. Their ground forces strip all useful resources before moving to the next target system. He transmitted tactical data about Ravok fleet movements and weapon capabilities. Perhaps some military force could use this intelligence even if they arrive too late to save the Kelani homeworld. Our analysis suggests the Ravok will complete their occupation of our territory within 30 standard days. After that they will likely expand toward the Centauri trade route or the outer spiral colonies. Any species in those regions should consider this a direct threat to their own security. The weapons fire was getting much closer now. Vexstar could hear his security team shouting orders in the hallway outside. They were fighting a delaying action to give him more time to transmit. We have children in our evacuation shelters who have never seen war. We have teachers and artists and engineers who dedicated their lives to building rather than destroying. These people do not deserve to die because they chose peace over violence. Vextar's voice grew stronger as he thought about everyone depending on him. Every family hiding in the underground shelters. Every child asking their parents when the bad ships would go away. Every elder who had lived long enough to see their peaceful civilization crumble. If there is any species listening who values life over profit and justice over convenience, please respond immediately. We will share everything we have built over 3 millennia in exchange for the chance to rebuild somewhere safe. The door to the communication center exploded inward and black-armored Ravik soldiers stormed into the room. Vextar kept transmitting, even as red laser sights painted his chest. This is likely my final transmission. The Ravik have reached our capital. Remember us as a people who chose to build bridges between worlds rather than weapons of war. Remember that we died asking for help rather than seeking revenge. Just as the lead Ravik soldier raised his weapon, an unexpected response crackled. Through the communication array, the signal was weak and came from a distant system marked only as Sol 3 in their star charts. Kelani vessel, this is Sol 3 Control responding to your distress call. We have received your coordinates and tactical data. Assistance is being prepared for immediate departure. The voice was strange, with an odd accent Vextar had never heard before. The signal quality suggested the transmission came from very far away, but somehow reached them faster than should have been possible with known technology. Sol 3 Control, please identify your species and estimated arrival time. We may not be able to maintain orbital communications much longer. There was a brief pause before the response came back. The voice sounded almost amused, which seemed impossible given the desperate situation. Species identification is human. Arrival time is 18 hours. Maintain defensive positions where possible. Help is coming. The transmission ended abruptly, leaving Vextar staring at the Ravik soldiers who had stopped advancing when they heard the exchange. Their commander spoke into his communicator in the harsh Ravik language before turning back toward the ambassador. Vextar had never heard of humans before, but 18 hours seemed impossible. No known species could cross the vast distances between star systems that quickly. Either these humans possessed technology far beyond current galactic standards, or they were much closer than their signal suggested. The Ravik commander gestured with his weapon, and Vextar stepped away from the transmitter. As they led him toward the exit, he wondered who these mysterious humans were and what kind of help they could possibly provide against the unstoppable Ravik war machine. Captain Rex Carvin stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution, watching the blue-green world of Kaltos Prime grow larger on the main screen. His ship had traveled farther from Earth than any human vessel before, and his crew of 200 volunteers represented the best soldiers Earth could provide. The journey had taken 18 hours, exactly as promised, but not because of superior engine technology. The Retribution had been stationed at a forward observation post 3 systems away when the Kelani distress call reached Earth. Humans had been watching Ravik expansion for months and waiting for the right moment to act. Captain, we are receiving multiple hails from the planet's surface and several orbital stations, reported Lieutenant Torres from the communications station. They seem very excited about our arrival. Corvin nodded and activated the main viewer. The face of a blue-scaled humanoid appeared on screen with large golden eyes that seemed both hopeful and desperate. This was obviously Ambassador Vextar from the distress transmission. Unknown vessel, this is Ambassador Vextar of the Kelani Federation. We cannot express our gratitude for your swift response to our call for assistance. We had prepared a diplomatic reception and formal welcome ceremony to honor your arrival. The captain studied the alien's face carefully. He had read the psychological profiles prepared by Earth's xenobiology team during the journey. The Kelani were peaceful traders who resolved conflicts through negotiation and compromise. They had no experience with species that preferred direct action over lengthy discussions. Ambassador Vextar, this is Captain Rex Corvin of the Human Expeditionary Force. We appreciate your hospitality, but we do not have time for ceremonies. Please provide detailed tactical information about current Ravik positions and civilian evacuation status. The ambassador's expression showed confusion at Corvin's blunt response. Behind Vextar, several other Kelani officials whispered among themselves with obvious concern. Captain Corvin, we had hoped to begin with formal diplomatic protocols and discussion of terms for any military assistance. Our government has prepared generous compensation packages for any species willing to provide defensive support. Corvin felt his jaw tighten with impatience. These people were facing extinction and they wanted to hold meetings about compensation packages. Every minute wasted in diplomatic pleasantries meant more civilian casualties. Ambassador, we are not here to negotiate terms or provide defensive support. We are here to eliminate the Ravok threat permanently. Please transmit all available intelligence on enemy fleet positions, command structure, and strategic objectives immediately. The bridge of the Retribution fell silent as the crew watched their captains exchange with the aliens. Everyone understood that first contact with a new species should involve careful diplomatic considerations, but they also understood that diplomacy was a luxury they could not afford. Captain, your response is somewhat concerning to our leadership. When we requested assistance, we assumed any military intervention would focus on protecting our remaining worlds rather than aggressive action against Ravok forces. Corvin activated a tactical display showing the current situation in Kelani space. Red indicators marked Ravok fleet positions while blue dots showed remaining civilian populations. The enemy had complete orbital supremacy around 6 worlds and was approaching 3 more. Ambassador, look at your tactical situation. The Ravok have overwhelming numerical superiority and mobility advantage. Defensive strategies will only delay your extinction by a few weeks. The only viable solution is to destroy their ability to continue offensive operations. The Kelani officials behind Vextar spoke in urgent whispers while pointing at data displays. Their body language suggested growing alarm at human intentions rather than relief at receiving help. Captain Corvin, we appreciate your analysis, but the Kelani Federation has always resolved conflicts through peaceful means. We were hoping for assistance in negotiating a ceasefire or establishing protected zones for civilian evacuation. Corvin realized that these aliens fundamentally misunderstood both the nature of their enemy and the type of assistance they had requested. The Ravok Empire was not a civilization that negotiated ceasefires or respected civilian evacuation zones. Ambassador, the Ravok military doctrine is based on total resource extraction following complete elimination of existing populations. They do not negotiate with species they consider inferior, and they do not recognize civilian non-combatant status. Peace talks are not an option. The captain gestured for his tactical officer to display detailed intelligence reports about Ravok conquest. Patterns, the data showed systematic extermination across 12 previous civilizations over the past 50 years. Our intelligence indicates that Ravok forces will complete occupation of your remaining worlds within 72 hours unless their command structure is disrupted. This requires direct assault on their mobile fortress platforms and elimination of their fleet commanders. Vextar studied the human intelligence reports with growing horror. The level of detail suggested that humans had been observing Ravok operations for an extended period without intervening to help previous victims. Captain, this intelligence is remarkably comprehensive. How long have your people been aware of Ravok expansion activities? And why did you not offer assistance to other species facing similar threats? Kovam had expected this question, but the honest answer would probably terrify the Kelani even more than current circumstances. Humans had been tracking Ravok movements because they represented exactly the type of challenge that Earth's military forces had been hoping to encounter. We have monitored Ravok activities for approximately 18 months. Previous civilizations either did not request assistance or were conquered before we could respond effectively. Your distress call provided clear coordinates and tactical data that allowed us to plan appropriate intervention. The ambassador's expression suggested he understood. There was more to the story, but decided not to pursue the question further. His people needed help regardless of human motivations for providing it. Captain, what specific type of intervention do you propose? Our remaining defensive forces are minimal and our civilian population has no experience with military operations. Corvin activated a strategic display showing projected battle plans. The human approach involved simultaneous strikes against multiple Ravik positions using tactics that made the peaceful Kelani visibly uncomfortable. We will target their mobile command platforms first to disrupt coordination between fleet elements. Secondary objectives include their resource processing facilities and supply depot stations. Tertiary targets are individual warships attempting to retreat or regroup. The tactical presentation showed human vessels deliberately ramming damaged Ravik ships rather than allowing them to escape. Other scenarios depicted boarding actions designed to capture rather than destroy enemy vessels. Captain, your battle plans seem extremely aggressive. Are you certain this level of violence is necessary? Perhaps a demonstration of superior technology might convince Ravik commanders to withdraw voluntarily. Corvin realized that the Kelani still believed warfare was primarily about displays of strength rather than application of overwhelming force. They thought enemies could be convinced to stop fighting through impressive demonstrations rather than complete defeat. Ambassador, the Ravik Empire has conquered 47 star systems over 50 years. They have never retreated voluntarily, and they have never negotiated with inferior species. Demonstrations of technology will only prompt them to call for reinforcements. The bridge communication system activated and Lieutenant Torres reported multiple Ravik vessels approaching the outer system boundary. The enemy had detected human arrival and was moving to intercept before further assistance could arrive. Captain, we have confirmed contact with 12 Ravok heavy cruisers and what appears to be a Fortress-class command vessel. They are broadcasting surrender demands to all ships in the system. Kovan smiled grimly as he watched enemy formations on the tactical display. The Ravok were approaching exactly as human intelligence had predicted. They expected quick victory against technologically inferior opponents who would panic under pressure. Ambassador, you are about to see why humans do not negotiate with species that threaten innocent civilians. All Kelani vessels should maintain safe distance from the combat zone. As the Retribution moved toward the approaching Ravik fleet, Vexstar finally understood what his desperate call for help had actually summoned to their peaceful corner of the galaxy. War Marshal Thandis stood in the command center of his massive dreadnought, Bone Crusher, and studied the tactical displays with satisfaction. His fleet of 300 vessels had conquered 47 star systems without a single defeat, and the pathetic Kelani would soon become number 48. The Ravok Empire had built its power on simple principles that had proven successful across 5 decades of expansion. Overwhelming force applied swiftly broke enemy resistance. Terror tactics prevented civilian populations from organizing effective resistance. Complete resource extraction maximized the value of each conquest. War Marshal, we are detecting unknown vessels in the inner system near the primary Kelani world, reported his intelligence officer, Commander Grekmal. Initial scans suggest approximately 12 ships of unknown configuration. Thandis examined the sensor data with mild interest. Desperate civilizations often called for help from distant allies when facing Ravik conquest. These allies usually provided token resistance before withdrawing when they realized the futility of opposing superior force. What species identification do we have on these unknown vessels? And what is their estimated military capability compared to our forward elements? Commander Grekmal manipulated the tactical display to show detailed scans of the mysterious ships. Their design was unlike anything in the Ravik database of known civilizations, but their size suggested they posed no serious threat to Ravik superiority. Species identification shows as human from a system designated Sol 3. No previous contact recorded in our intelligence files. Estimated military capability appears minimal based on vessel size and apparent crew complement. The War Marshal had never heard of humans, but that was not unusual. The galaxy contained thousands of minor species that occasionally interfered in Ravik operations before learning better. Most withdrew after losing a few ships to superior Ravik firepower. Order forward elements to broadcast standard surrender demands to all vessels in the system. If these humans withdraw immediately, they will be permitted to depart unharmed. If they attempt interference, they will be destroyed along with the Kelani. The forward elements of his fleet moved toward the inner system with practiced efficiency. 12 heavy cruisers and 2 assault carriers should be more than sufficient to eliminate whatever token resistance these unknown aliens might provide. Thandis watched the tactical display as his ships approached the human vessels. Standard Ravok doctrine called for an overwhelming display of force designed to break enemy morale before actual combat became necessary. Most species surrendered when they saw the size disparity. War Marshal, the human vessels are not responding to our surrender demands. They appear to be accelerating toward our forward elements rather than withdrawing to safe distance. This was mildly interesting but not particularly concerning. Some species chose to make futile gestures of defiance before accepting inevitable defeat. The Ravok fleet would simply destroy them quickly and continue with planetary conquest operations. Order our forward commanders to eliminate the human vessels with minimum expenditure of ammunition. We want to conserve resources for the surface bombardment phase. The first engagement began exactly as expected, with Ravok cruisers opening fire at maximum range using their superior weapon systems. Heavy plasma bolts crossed space toward the approaching human ships, while point defense systems prepared to intercept any return fire, but something was wrong with the tactical display. The human vessels had not slowed down or changed course when Ravok weapons locked onto them. Instead, they continued accelerating directly toward the Ravok formation as if they welcomed the incoming fire. War Marshal, the human ships are not attempting evasive maneuvers. They appear to be charging directly into our weapons fire while broadcasting some kind of audio transmission. Thandis ordered the transmission to be played over the command center speakers. A voice with a strange accent spoke an accented galactic standard with a tone that made his scales crawl with unease. Ravok vessels, this is Captain Rex Corvin of the Human Expeditionary Force. Your mistake was thinking we came here to fight a war. We came here to end one. The War Marshal stared at the tactical display as human ships continued their impossible charge directly into the teeth of concentrated Ravok firepower. Several had taken direct hits that should have crippled them, but they maintained course and speed. Commander, what is the status of our forward elements? Why have they not eliminated these human vessels yet? Grekmal worked frantically at his console, trying to make sense of the sensor readings. The battle was developing in ways that violated everything they understood about space combat tactics and alien psychology. War Marshal, our cruisers report multiple direct hits on human vessels, but the targets are not behaving as expected. They continue advancing even after suffering what should be fatal damage to primary systems. One of the human ships had lost its main engines and was venting atmosphere from multiple hull breaches, but instead of retreating or requesting assistance, it actually accelerated using auxiliary thrusters. The damaged vessel was on a collision course with the lead Ravok cruiser. All ships concentrate fire on the damaged human vessel. Do not allow it to reach ramming distance. The concentrated firepower of 6 Ravok cruisers focused on the approaching human ship, but it refused to die. Secondary explosions tore through its hull and weapon systems went offline, but it kept coming with the persistence of a guided missile. When it finally struck the Ravok cruiser, the explosion was visible to the naked eye from the command bridge of the Bone Crusher. Both vessels disappeared in a brilliant flash that left debris scattered across several thousand kilometers of space. War Marshal, we have lost the Fang of Conquest to human ramming attack. This appears to be a deliberate tactic rather than desperation. The other human vessels are continuing their assault. Thandis had fought dozens of different species across 5 decades of conquest, but he had never encountered an enemy that deliberately sacrificed ships as weapons. The psychological impact on his crews was immediate and devastating. Order all forward elements to maintain maximum distance from human vessels. Use long-range weapons only until we can analyze their tactical doctrine. But the humans had no intention of allowing the Ravok fleet to maintain safe distance. 3 more human ships broke through the defensive formation, using unpredictable maneuvers that seemed to ignore damage to their own vessels. The lead Human ship targeted the Bone Crusher directly and broadcast another transmission that made Thandis question everything he thought he understood about galactic warfare. War Marshal Thandis, we know who you are, and we know what you have done to 47 innocent civilizations. Today that ends. Today you learn what happens when you threaten people under human protection. The War Marshal realized that these humans had been studying Ravok operations for much longer than anyone suspected. They knew his name and his ship, and his conquest record. This was not a chance encounter, but a planned intervention. How do they know my identity? How do they know our operational history? Commander, I want immediate analysis of human intelligence capabilities. But Commander Grekmal was staring at his tactical display with an expression of growing horror. The remaining human ships were not fighting like any known species. They moved through space like predators hunting prey rather than soldiers following doctrine. War Marshal, the human vessels appear to be targeting our command and control systems specifically. They are not attempting to capture territory or resources. They seem focused entirely on eliminating our ability to coordinate fleet operations. New human ship appeared on the tactical display, moving faster than should have been possible with known propulsion technology. This vessel was larger than the others and broadcast identification as UES Retribution with Captain Rex Corven commanding. War Marshal, incoming transmission from the human command vessel. They are demanding immediate surrender of all Ravok forces in this system. Thandis had never surrendered to anyone in 50 years of conquest, but watching the human ships hunt. His cruisers like pack predators made him wonder if today might be different. These beings fought with a savage joy that his conquest-hardened warriors had never encountered. The transmission from Captain Koven contained a simple message that would haunt Thandis for the rest of his life. War Marshal, you wanted to harvest this system. Instead, you are going to feed it. Sergeant Elena Vasquez checked her equipment one final time as the human transport ship approached the massive Ravok orbital command station. Her strike team of 50 soldiers represented the most experienced ground combat specialists Earth could provide for this mission. The orbital station housed 3,000 Ravok soldiers and automated defense systems designed to repel armies. Previous intelligence suggested that direct assault would require at least 10,000 troops with heavy armor support. But humans did not fight like other species. Listen up, people, Vasquez addressed her team over the communication system. The Ravok think this station is impregnable because they built it to stop conventional attacks. They have never faced an enemy that fights the way we do. The sergeant studied the tactical display showing the station's layout. Massive armor plating protected all obvious entry points. Point defense turrets covered every approach route. Internal sensors monitored all corridors and chambers. It was a fortress designed by military engineers who understood siege warfare. Rodriguez and Martinez will take Alpha Squad through the waste processing systems. Johnson and Lee will lead Bravo Squad through the reactor cooling vents. I will take Charlie Squad through the atmospheric processors. The plan sounded insane to anyone familiar with the station's environmental hazards. The waste processing systems contained corrosive chemicals that would kill most known species within minutes. The reactor cooling vents were flooded with radiation, levels that required specialized shielding. The atmospheric processors operated at temperatures that could cook flesh, but humans had evolved on a world where everything was designed to kill them. Earth's environment had shaped them into creatures that could survive conditions other species considered uninhabitable. What the Ravok saw as impassable barriers, humans saw as inconvenient obstacles. Remember that our job is not just to capture the station, but to break Ravok morale throughout this system. Every enemy soldier who survives today will spread stories about human capabilities. We want those stories to be terrifying. The transport ship docked with the station's outer hull using magnetic clamps and cutting tools. Within minutes, the human strike teams had breached the armor plating and disappeared into the station's internal systems like ghosts. General Crester commanded the Ravok garrison from the central command center deep within the station. His 3,000 soldiers occupied defensive positions throughout the structure while Automated systems monitored every possible entry point. No enemy force had ever successfully penetrated a Ravok orbital fortress. General, we are detecting unauthorized entry at docking port 7. Automated defenses are engaging unknown intruders, but sensor readings are inconsistent. Crester examined the tactical display with growing confusion. The sensors showed breaches at the docking port, but no corresponding movement through adjacent corridors. Either the detection systems were malfunctioning or the intruders had somehow vanished after entering the station. Deploy security teams to investigate the breach point. I want immediate identification of the intruder species and assessment of their capabilities. But the security teams found only empty corridors and sealed blast doors. The cutting tools used to breach the hull were still active, but there was no sign of whoever had used them. It was as if the intruders had simply disappeared into the station itself. Sergeant Vasquez led her team through the atmospheric processing chambers while monitoring communications from the other squads. The environment was exactly as hostile as expected, with temperatures that would have killed most aliens instantly and chemical vapors that burned exposed skin. Her soldiers moved through the deadly maze with practiced efficiency while their environmental suits protected them from the worst hazards. The Ravok had never imagined that any species would be capable of surviving in areas they considered uninhabitable. Charlie Squad, this is Alpha Squad. We have reached the primary data storage level. Beginning information extraction procedures. Now, Rodriguez and his team had infiltrated the station's computer core by crawling through waste processing tubes that the Ravok considered impossible to navigate. Their environmental suits were corroded and damaged, but they had reached their objective without triggering any alarms. Copy, Alpha Squad. Bravo Squad, report your status. Johnson's voice crackled with radiation interference from the reactor section. Bravo Squad has reached the power distribution center. We are in position to cut primary systems on your command. General Crester studied his tactical displays with growing alarm as reports flooded in from throughout the station. Security teams were finding evidence of infiltration in areas that should have been completely inaccessible to any known life form. How are these intruders moving through our environmental hazard zones? No species in our database can survive those conditions without massive life support equipment. His intelligence officer, Major Vethrin, worked frantically to correlate sensor readings with known alien capabilities. General, the radiation levels in Sector 7 would kill most species within minutes. The chemical concentrations in Sector 12 are lethal to any carbon-based life form. Yet we are detecting movement in both areas. The first direct contact came when a Ravok patrol encountered 3 human soldiers in a maintenance corridor. The engagement lasted exactly 43 seconds and ended, with all 6 Ravok warriors dead, while the humans continued toward their objective without apparent injury. General, we have confirmed contact with human ground forces. They appear to be using primitive blade weapons alongside advanced technology. Our standard armor provides insufficient protection against their close combat techniques. Crester reviewed the combat footage with disbelief. The human soldiers had moved through his warriors like predators rather than combatants. They used the environment itself as a weapon and fought with a coordination that suggested extensive experience in similar operations. Deploy heavy weapons teams to all critical areas. These humans cannot be invulnerable to concentrated firepower. But the heavy weapons teams never reached their assigned positions. Human soldiers appeared from impossible locations and eliminated them using tactics that violated every principle of civilized warfare. They struck from ventilation shafts and emerged through floor gratings like creatures from Nightmare. Sergeant Vasquez reached the command center level and established communication with her scattered teams. The operation was proceeding exactly as planned, with minimal casualties and maximum psychological impact on enemy forces. All squads, this is Charlie Actual. We have reached the primary objective. Begin final phase operations now. The final phase involves simultaneous strikes against the station's most critical systems while capturing key Ravok officers for interrogation. Human soldiers emerged from dozens of locations throughout the station. Like a coordinated swarm of predators, General Krester found himself surrounded by human soldiers who had somehow materialized in his supposedly secure command center. His personal guards lay unconscious on the floor while these terrifying aliens studied his tactical displays with professional interest. General Krester, I am Sergeant Elena Vasquez of the Human Expeditionary Force. You are now a prisoner of war, and will be treated according to the standards established by civilized species. The general stared at the human soldier with a mixture of fear and confusion. She was smaller than most Ravok warriors, but moved with a confidence that suggested she considered him no threat whatsoever. How did you penetrate our defenses? This station was designed to be impregnable against any known assault technique. Vasquez smiled with an expression that made Krester's blood run cold. General, you built this station to stop armies. We are not an army. We are hunters, and you forgot that prey animals do not get to choose the terrain where predators find them. The interrogation that followed broke the captured Ravok officers within hours. Not through torture or threats, but through simple terror at human persistence and capability. They revealed the locations of hidden supply bases and reinforcement fleets because they could not imagine resisting creatures who fought like living nightmares. General, your high command will want to know what happened here today. Make sure they understand that humans do not just fight wars. We end them permanently. As Ravok prisoners were prepared for transport, Vasquez realized that word of human capabilities would spread throughout the enemy empire faster than any military intelligence. Every survivor would carry stories that would make future enemies hesitate before threatening innocent civilians. Admiral Marcus Stone stood on the bridge of the UES Devastator watching hyperspace distortions appear throughout the Kelani system. His main battle fleet had arrived just in time to face the Ravok Empire's ultimate response to human interference. The reinforcements emerging from faster-than-light travel represented the largest military force the Ravok had ever assembled in a single location. 200 heavy warships surrounded a massive structure that dwarfed even the largest human vessels. Admiral, we are receiving identification signals from the approaching Ravok fleet. That massive structure appears to be their legendary planet, killer-designated Void Hammer. Intelligence estimates suggest it can crack continental plates and render entire worlds uninhabitable. Stone studied the tactical display with the calm expression of someone who had spent decades preparing for exactly this type of confrontation. Earth's military planners had always known that humanity would eventually face opponents with superior technology and overwhelming numbers. Lieutenant Commander Hayes, please open a channel to Ambassador Vexstar on the surface. I want to explain our situation before we begin final operations. The blue-scaled face of the Kelani diplomat appeared on the main screen with an expression of obvious terror. Behind him, the emergency government bunker showed signs of desperate preparation for planetary evacuation. Admiral Stone, we are detecting massive Ravok reinforcements entering our system. Our analysis suggests they have brought enough firepower to sterilize every world in our confederation. Perhaps it would be best if your forces withdrew before the situation becomes hopeless. The Admiral had expected this response from the peaceful Kelani, who still did not understand the type of species they had summoned to their aid. Humans did not withdraw when facing superior numbers because superior numbers meant the enemy had more to lose. Ambassador, your people called for help, and we responded to that call. Humans do not abandon allies when the situation becomes difficult. We especially do not abandon them when facing genocidal enemies who threaten innocent civilians. Vexstar studied Stone's expression with growing alarm. Admiral, your forces have already demonstrated remarkable courage and capability, but the odds against you are now insurmountable. The Void Hammer alone possesses enough firepower to destroy your entire fleet. Stone activated his personal command display and began reviewing battle plans that had been prepared during the journey to Kelani space. Every scenario had been analyzed and every contingency had been considered by Earth's finest strategic minds. Ambassador, I need you to understand something about the species you requested assistance from. Humans evolved on what we call a death world where everything was designed to kill everything else. We did not just survive that environment, we conquered it completely. The Admiral gestured toward the tactical display showing human fleet positions. Relative to the approaching Ravok Armada, we spent 10,000 years learning to fight against impossible odds because anything less than total victory meant extinction. On the Void Hammer, Supreme War Leader Korthax reviewed intelligence reports about human capabilities with growing unease. His massive fortress ship had never faced defeat in 3 decades of operation, but these unknown aliens had already demonstrated tactics that defied conventional military wisdom. War Leader, the human fleet appears to be maintaining position rather than withdrawing as expected. They have approximately 60 vessels against our force of 200 plus the Void Hammer. Their tactical position is hopeless. Korthax had conquered 12 different civilizations using the threat of planetary destruction. Most species surrendered immediately when they realized the Void Hammer could render their worlds uninhabitable. Even the most stubborn enemies withdrew when facing certain defeat. Open communications with the human command vessel. Offer them safe passage out of the system in exchange for non-interference with our colony extermination operations. The response from Admiral Stone came back within minutes and contained a message that made every Ravok officer on the bridge question their understanding of galactic warfare. Supreme War Leader Korthax, this is Admiral Marcus Stone of the Human Battle Fleet. We reject your offer of safe passage. We came here to protect innocent people, and we will not leave until that mission is complete. The transmission continued with tactical data that revealed the true scope of human military preparation. Our intelligence services have been tracking Ravok expansion for 18 months. We know the location of your home systems, your supply routes, and your command structure. Korthax stared at the communication display as Stone's voice continued with quiet confidence. Today we eliminate your ability to threaten peaceful civilizations permanently. Today the Ravok Empire learns what happens when they attack people under human protection. War Leader, the human admiral, appears to be broadcasting tactical information to every ship in their fleet. They are not just refusing to surrender, but actually preparing to attack our superior force. The Supreme War Leader had never encountered an enemy that welcomed overwhelming odds as an opportunity rather than a death sentence. Human psychology appeared to operate on principles that made no sense to any rational military commander. All ships concentrate firepower on the human fleet. Deploy the Voidhammer's main weapon system and prepare for planetary bombardment. These humans will watch their new allies die before we finish them. But Admiral Stone had no intention of allowing the Ravok to threaten colony civilians. The human battle fleet moved into attack formation, using tactics that had been refined through centuries of warfare against impossible enemies. All ships, this is Admiral Stone. Today we show the galaxy why peaceful species call us for help when they face extinction. Today we demonstrate what Deathworlders do to bullies who threaten the innocent. The battle began with the Ravok fleet opening fire at maximum range using their superior weapon systems. But human ships did not respond with conventional tactics. Instead, they accelerated directly toward the enemy formation while broadcasting. A sound that made Ravok warriors question their sanity. Human crews were singing battle songs as they charged into certain death. They sang about heroes and glory and protecting those who could not protect themselves. They sang like warriors who had found exactly the type of fight they had been born for. War Leader, the human vessels are not attempting to avoid our weapons. Fire. They appear to be using damaged ships as guided missiles while continuing their assault. This tactical doctrine makes no logical sense. Korthax watched human ships ram his cruisers while their crews sang songs of victory rather than death. These beings fought with a joy that transformed hopeless odds into glorious opportunity. They welcomed death if it meant protecting innocent people. 3 human vessels broke through the Ravok defensive formation and began targeting the Void Hammer directly. The massive fortress ship had never been successfully attacked by conventional forces, but these humans moved like predators that had found their perfect prey. Supreme War Leader incoming transmission from the lead human assault vessel. They are demanding immediate surrender of all Ravok forces in this system and every other system they currently occupy. The transmission came from Captain Rex Corvin, aboard the UES Retribution. His ship was heavily damaged and venting atmosphere, but his voice carried absolute confidence in ultimate victory. War Leader Korthax, your empire has spent 50 years terrorizing peaceful civilizations. Today that ends. Today you learn that some species fight harder when the odds are impossible. The Void Hammer's main weapon fired at the approaching human ships, but they continued their assault even after taking direct hits that should have vaporized them. They fought like creatures that had evolved specifically to hunt things larger and more dangerous than themselves. When the massive fortress ship finally exploded, the blast was visible from the surface of Kaltos Prime. Admiral Stone's fleet had paid a terrible price, but they had eliminated the Ravok Empire's ultimate weapon and broken their ability to threaten anyone ever again. Ambassador Vexstar watched the space battle from his bunker and finally understood what his desperate call for help had summoned to their peaceful corner of the galaxy. Humans were not just willing to fight impossible odds. They preferred them because victory against overwhelming enemies was the only type of victory worth achieving. The war ended not with negotiation or compromise, but with the complete destruction of Ravok military power. Surviving enemy forces fled, in terror, carrying stories that would make future aggressors think twice before threatening innocent civilians. Humanity had found its purpose among the stars as the Guardians, who answered desperate calls for help with overwhelming force applied in the service of justice itself.